Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden, but we're going to head north this time and visit another brewery that I have never tried anything from actually. We're going to go to the Sundsvall area for this one, and if I remember correctly that is Norrland County. So for this review we have a beer that caught my eye for a couple of reasons. Like I said, it was one from a brewery that I'd never tried anything from, but it's also a style of beer that I really quite enjoy actually, and this is one that appeared the first time to my knowledge in the October releases, the local and small releases through Systembolaget here in Sweden. So very curious to see how this one turns out. For this review then we are going to have a look at my first beer from the Lockeby Bryggeri, and this one is the Midvinternatt, basically the midwinter's night, as I'm sure you can guess, those of you who are not Swedish speakers. But this one is a Doppelbock coming in at 7.4% ABV, and it is supposed to be pretty damn good actually. This beer was a little bit more expensive though. I think it was 108 crowns I paid for this one, but you know, like I said, it's a new brewery that I've never tried before. It's a style of beer that I really enjoy, and I just kind of said, you know, why not? So hopefully it's a good beer, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one. As I say, a style that I really enjoy. You've got the Paulaner Salvator, the Eyinger Celebrator, the Augustiner Maximator, and things like this, and hopefully this is another really good one. Some of the Swedish Doppelbocks that I've tried already have been pretty good, like the Lunator is a pretty good one that you'll see fairly regularly here. But very much looking forward to this one, and as always I hope you guys enjoy my take on this beer. So anyway, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I'll do in the future from Lockeby Bryggeri. Very first time I'm trying one of their beers. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the home page and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to whenever I get the opportunity, and as always please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Lockeby Bryggeri then. So Lockeby Bryggeri was founded back in 2015, and it can be found in Lockeby, just outside of Härnösand to the north of Sundsvall, and this area of Sweden is known as the High Coast if you translate it into English. But the main man behind this brewery is Frans Olofsson, and he runs it with his wife, but his father and his two brothers are also involved in the company as well. So apparently Frans homebrewed as a teenager, but he also works as a biologist for the local municipality. But the brewery is on their farm, which you can find just a mile to the west of Härnösand, and it can be found in a newly built house which has been specially adapted for them to brew in. But they moved into this farm back in 2011, and it's also a neighbour to Härnösand as well, which is a growing company. There's a lot more distilleries and things opening up in Sweden these days. But this brewery is a very small operation. They were only brewing around 500 litres per batch, according to the article that I read, but that was from about a year ago. They might have upscaled since then. In 2018 though, they produced just 11,000 litres of beer, and this was found mainly in the local area, but also some made it up to Umeå, and I believe that is where France is from originally, and they're currently working, as I say, to actually scale up the brewery so they can get their beers out there a little bit more. As of October 2019, when I'm filming this review for you, they've produced 12 different types of beer according to Untappd, and these are available to order from Systembolaget nationwide. And there's a few different styles in there. There was pale ales, there was IPAs, there was an imperial stout, but like I said, this is the one that really caught my eye, just because it is a style that I enjoy. And when I introduce you guys to new breweries, if you like, I tend to just pick a style that I enjoy, or a particular beer that seems unusual and just catches my eye in that way. So yeah, that's all you really need to know about Lockeby Bryggeri for the moment, and that was all I was really able to find out about them actually. I always use beernews.se to find out the information, but there was only one article so far on these guys, so probably they've just been busy over the last year kind of going to beer festivals and things like that, getting their name out there a little bit and trying to scale up the capacity in the brewery too. But hopefully this is another brewery that does very well. There's a lot of breweries here in Sweden now. I think there's about 400 or something like that. Someone told me there's around 400 these days. So yeah, lots of good craft beer to pick from here in Sweden, and hopefully this is another very good example. But yeah, that's all you need to know about Lockeby Bryggeri for the moment. If you want to learn more, of course, you can check out the brewery website in the description below, and you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram Instagram and things like that to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. If you're interested in the different beers that they do, I would recommend that you check out the Rate Beer and Untappd pages as well for more information. But yeah, let's get on and actually have a little taste of this beer then. I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork on this one before we open it up. There you can see there's some quite nice modern artwork on this actually, and from what I gather the art on this is supposed to be Skoleberget, which is one of their local landmarks. And it tells you a little bit on the side about it here, but basically Skoleberget it's a big mountain that's on the coast basically. Like I said, this area of Sweden is known as the High Coast, and from what I gather it is actually the highest sea barrier in the world, if you like it's the highest mountain that's right on the edge of the sea actually. It's basically, I don't know if you can technically call it a cliff. I didn't do geography at university and things like that. There will be people watching of course who can comment more on that than I did. Meteorology and astrophysics and chemistry and things, but never really geography, to be honest with you. But yeah, nicely presented beer this one. And I have to say I do quite like the artwork on this, but a 7.4% Doppelbock, and yeah, and it basically just says here Lockeby Bryggeri AB, mikrobryggeri med hjärtat i höga kusten, basically a brewery with its heart in on the high coast. Yeah, you always mix. That's one of the confusing things when you do Swedish, is the pronouns, which ones to use. But yeah, just a plain bottle cap on this one, and this one, if I remember correctly, is a 750 milliliter. It's not a 660 or anything like that. It doesn't actually. Oh yeah, it does. 75 centilitres, so 750 milliliters. I don't like centilitres. It's annoying. But let's get this guy out and we will get on with the tasting then. I'm not sure about that, why the alcohol industry has never moved away from centilitres and hectolitres and things like that, just to use millilitres and litres. It would make a lot more sense. It's probably a marketing thing just to make it seem like more. If you put 0.75 litres rather than 75 centilitres, maybe it just doesn't sound quite as good. But it might be some old tradition to do with calculations for you know, brewing and stuff like this. Of course, it's the whole thing with pounds and ounces as well that they still use in Scotland for buying meat rather than using grams and stuff these days. But I think slowly we are starting to convert over. We still use miles instead of kilometres, but when you learn it in school and science, you always use the SI international units. But yeah, as you can see with this one, it's poured a lovely sort of dark. It's a kind of mahogany, chestnutty kind of colour, this one, and that's exactly what you would expect from a Doppelbock. You can see there's a nice quarter finger of a frothy, I would say light kind of beige head on this one. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass and a few little ones just heading up towards the bottom of that head there. But you know, overall it looks very nice. Nothing overly surprising about this beer in terms of its appearance when you consider that it is a Doppelbock. What I would say is that this one comes across, even if I wipe the glass, this one does come across as a little bit hazy, and whether you're going to get a hazy Doppelbock in Germany, I think it just depends on the brewery, to be honest. I mean, I remember being at Weihenstephan and drinking the Corbinian on tap, and that was crystal clear when it came out. And I can't remember if the Eyinger Celebrator, when I reviewed that for you, I can't remember if that was hazy or not, but a lot of the German beers do tend to be clear, but I think there is a preference amongst craft breweries to you know, to keep them hazy, and understand that. So that's another interesting point just to make about this beer. But in terms of its appearance, nothing particularly surprising about this beer when you consider that it is a German style Doppelbock. So so yeah, let's take a look at that aroma then and just see how we get on. Ooh, that's nice. And I feel I'm about to sneeze, by the way, but it's not the beer. Yeah. So straight away, that one, it smells very, very nice. The thing that you'll always get with German beers, one of the kind of key things about German beer for me, is just the smoothness of the malts. And I would guess that if this is a German style, probably they'll be using, I would think they might use, if they're not using Swedish malt, they'll probably use German malt from the likes of Weirmann or something like this in Bamberg. But straight away with this beer, you get that lovely, smooth, brown bready quality that you expect of this style. Oddly, like the Doppelbock is a lager style of beer. It's a cold fermentation, like 4 degrees or something. And of course it's related to the Helles, the Dunkel and the Schwarzbier, and of course they're related to the Czech ones, the Svetli, Letzak, Černý and Tmavy. So these beers are all related. You've got the Vienna lager in there as well. So the Doppelbock is a type of lager beer. It's just a very strong lager beer with dark malts and things. It's basically the big brother of the Dunkel, I guess you could say. but it smells very, very nice, this beer. Lovely big brown bready notes to it. You can pick up some nice woody and slightly nutty undertones to the beer as well. It comes across as a little bit kind of toasty. There's definitely brown sugar in there, and it's there's a bit of caramel sweetness to it, but at the same time it's quite a well toasted. It's definitely quite a well toasted brown sugar. It's not quite sort of thick enough and syrupy enough to be like treacle or molasses or something like that. It's definitely more just a kind of well fired caramel or something like that. But nice brown bready qualities. It almost has a little bit of like a kind of well fired bread crusty note to it as well. If you think of like a hedgehog roll, or like the edge of a rye bread loaf or something like that, it really kind of comes across just like that. That's really nice actually. The aroma of this beer is pretty authentic. It smells a little bit more kind of bready and thick and things like that compared to some of the German ones. The German ones quite often are quite sweet. They don't lean quite as much towards the bready side of things, but the aroma of this beer is certainly very nice and pretty authentic. On the hoppy side of things then, it's definitely German noble hops that are in here. Hallertauer, Tettnanger. You know, they may well have used like, you know, Sats hops from the Czech Republic, Žatec as they call them, or, you know, one of the Slovenian hops. But with the Doppelbock, those two hops that I mentioned are quite similar. Some of the Polish hops like Lubelski and things are quite similar too. But I'm pretty sure it will be Hallertauer, Tettnanger that's in this one, going from the aroma. The other things, Pearl and stuff from Germany as well, but it's got that very distinctive kind of light, slightly sweet earthiness to it. You've definitely got some of that, a little bit of that kind of soft, quite bright floral character that you get from the noble hops too, and some of the lighter grassiness, and there's a good element of fruity quality to this beer as well. The fruit comes across as being a little bit berry-like and quite juicy actually in its aroma. I mean, there's a good bit of blackcurrant and blackberries coming out of this one for me. Some nice, definitely some nice kind of figs and plums and stuff like this as well. Usually, some of the craft takes on this one, some of the kind of micro-brewed versions of these beers, if you like, quite often they can be a little bit more complex in their fruits than some of the German ones will be straight up, because a lot of the German ones I think are quite figgy and sometimes just a little bit raisiny, but when you get ones like this, sometimes they might put American hops and things like that in them, and you get just a little bit more fruity quality, like blackberries and blackcurrants and things like that too. So that's an interesting point. The aroma of this beer, I think, is a little bit more complex than you might get from some of the tradition, some of the ones actually brewed in Germany and things like that. But that's by the by. It's just always interesting to talk about these things, especially when it's a style of beer that you really enjoy. But the aroma is pretty authentic. There's nothing surprising about it. It's just a little bit more. It's got a little bit more depth and things to it than I've had from some of the other ones. So thumbs up to Lockeby Bryggeri on that. But let's have a taste of this beer then and just see how we get on. As I always say, take a bit of time and just enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck in. But this one is the Midvinternatt, a 7.4% Doppelbock from Lockeby Bryggeri, just outside of Härnösand, near Sundsvall in Norrland County here in Sweden on the high coast. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål. That's pretty nice, I have to say. Now, when it comes to authenticity, I think these guys, they've got it pretty good actually. I mean, it definitely has it has all the different flavours that you expect. They just come out in a slightly different way. I think this beer, the bread crusty notes in this one, that's the first impression I have of this. Those sort of bread crusty notes, they really come to the fore in this one, which is kind of interesting. Whereas the traditional German ones, the original ones, are a little bit more. They're a little bit more kind of caramelly. This one is definitely, it has all the flavours you expect, like I say. This one just is a little bit more kind of bready, I think, than compared to some of the other Doppelbocks that I've had. But it's really nice actually, make no mistake, this is a good beer. The other thing you're going to notice about this is just how it feels very clean. And I've said this about beers that come from Norway, Iceland, even in Scotland and things like that back at home. a lot of the beers you'll find from the northern parts of Sweden and Norway and things like that, because of the quality of water that they have up there, they feel very clean, and the mouthfeel comes across as being a little bit wetter and stuff like that. But that suits this beer actually, because it does have a good oily malt base to kind of balance that out. So that's my main first impression of the beer. But let's try and break down the flavour of this one a little bit more. Yeah, so straight away with this beer then, you'll find that the middle of your palate's just blanketed with this lovely kind of brown bready quality. That just goes straight across the middle of your tongue. Your palate dries up a little bit the further you go into the aftertaste here, but at the same time it does kind of sweeten up. You move from being mainly bready into a more sort of brown sugary flavour, which is nice. But the bread crusty qualities are there, and it's not as well fired as you might think from the aroma. I thought the middle of the palate might be really quite dry in the aftertaste, but it really isn't. Lovely smooth brown bready base, a little bit of a as I say, a little bit of a kind of bread crusty quality there that just, it dries out slightly, and then in the very centre of your palate you've got some nice brown sugary notes to this one. There is almost a little element of a kind of cakey vibe to this beer as well, which is interesting, and that's one of the little quirks that you'll find in this too. To me, if you move further forward on the palate, it comes across as being almost just a little bit more kind of cakey and things. But yeah, I do like how this goes together. You will get a few kind of woody undertones to this beer. If you go to the front corners of your palate and move in a little bit, I think there is a little element of a slightly woody flavour to this one, which is nice. I'm not really getting any nutty qualities out of this one. I really don't think it has very much in the way of a kind of nutty flavour to it. Mainly bready, brown sugars. The brown sugar, as I say, it leans a bit more towards a sweeter kind of caramel later on, but it does have a bit more of a kind of syrupy, slightly treacly kind of quality to it in the beginning. It's nice, this, I like how all the flavours go together, and some of the flavours that are in this beer, it has all the types of flavours that you'd expect, but the sort of accent on them is a little bit different. The brown sugar flavour in this, I think, is a little bit darker than you would get from the likes of the Celebrator or the Maximator or something like that, and you will get a little element of darkness to that, and it's, you know, in those beers it starts off, it's quite sweet all throughout, but there is an element of darkness when the beer dries out. This one kind of does it the opposite way. I think the brown sugars start off a bit darker, then they lighten up a bit later on. So this is what I'm saying to you, when you have these beers brewed in different places, the flavours will come out differently in different ways and things like that, and that's what makes it interesting, reviewing styles that you really enjoy from different places. I love doing the same with the Scotch ales as well. But this beer, it gets a thumbs up from me. I wouldn't hesitate to drink it again actually. It's a nice example of the style. It does things in a different way and just really gets you thinking. They've got the malt base pretty solid in this one, I have to admit. Really nice. But yeah, you'll find the middle of your palate, it does dry out a little bit, and that's when you start to get that kind of lighter caramelly sweetness, and that's when some of those kind of cakey flavours come out of the beer as well actually, which is interesting. Hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate, there's a little bit of earthiness in there. From the way the earthiness is, I wonder if there might be a little bit of like Bramling's Cross or something in this, maybe one of the English hops, because the fruitiness that's in this beer is a little bit, it's a little bit almost kind of porter or stouty like as well. There's a little bit of that. There's a little bit of that. The way that the fruits come out in this one, it's almost just, it reminds me of some of these English hops actually. So there's something in my head that I want to say that this beer might have one of the German hops I mentioned, and it might just have a little bit of an English hop in there, like Bramling's Cross or something like that. I'd be very curious to know that actually. It could just be the different malts and things they've used that are giving you out different fruits, because hops of course will always give you different kind of fruity flavours and stuff depending on what malts you're mixing them with. Simcoe, for example, passion fruit in a normal IPA, and it can give you a whole host of things if you put it in a black IPA or some, just as an example. But the fruity side of this beer is interesting too. But like I was saying, nice little bit of earthiness in the back corners of the palate. As you come further forward, it's almost just a little touch herbal. And then as you move towards the front corners of the palate, you've got a nice you've definitely got a nice kind of floral aromaticity there. Then round the front curve of the palate, the beer's just a little bit lighter and more grassy, and then behind the front curve of the palate, you've got that nice oily bubble where those juicy, fruity esters start to push their way out. Yeah, the fruity side of this beer then is really interesting. It's weird actually, I just got a little bit of dryness there from underneath where the fruit would be. That's unusual. A little bit of a sort of boozy, cakey dryness to it, which is interesting. But yeah, with the fruitiness in this beer then, it's got a nice juicy, plummy quality. It's not quite as sharp as you might expect from, say, raisins, for example, but a nice sort of juicy, plummy quality. There's some prunes and datey qualities in there too, which are probably coming out from the kind of cakey qualities that this beer has. You could argue that it's a little bit phenolic as well, like sort of medicinal, cough syrupy. So you do get all of these kind of things going on with it too. Definitely some nice juicy figs, and the further you go into the aftertaste, it really does start to lean a little bit towards a sort of blackcurranty, blackberry type flavour actually, which is really quite interesting. But I like how this goes together. I think the further you go into the aftertaste, those blackberry blackcurrants linger there. Some of the cakiness is there as well, and a little bit of the earthy hops, and some of the brown sugars are the things that are kind of lingering into the aftertaste as well. The brown sugars, of course, have got a nice, the more you drink of it, as I say, the further into the aftertaste they get sweeter. But pardon me, I'm also getting more of those kind of syrupy, kind of treacly things too, which is interesting. The German ones, of course, is more of a kind of toasted caramel, but a very thick caramel, if that makes sense, whereas this beer comes across as being a little bit more kind of treacly, if you like. But it's a very nice example of the style, and it's always cool to see different brewers' interpretations of it actually. So yeah, it gets a thumbs up from me. I wouldn't hesitate to drink it again, but you know, when it's sold in a big bottle like this, it is a little bit of a treat beer rather than a drinker, this one, and it's one that you would share with your friends actually, which is what I'm going to do after the video. But thumbs up from me, this one. I like it, and I've probably spent quite a bit of time talking about the flavour here because I enjoy the style so much. In terms of the mouthfeel then, I would say, yeah, I mean, mid-bodied beer, this one. Carbonation is very smooth. The mouthfeel has a good balance between being a little bit oily but also a little bit wet. I think, as I said earlier, I think that's mainly due to the cleanliness, the sort of feeling you'll get from the water up there, the quality of the water. In terms of IBUs and hoppy bitterness, I think you're talking maybe about 25 IBUs out of this beer. Maybe a bit more because the malt base does have an element of dryness to it. It could be like 30 or something like that, but the malt base is balanced between the bready smoothness, the dryness, and also a bit of sweetness later on, and you've got some nice juicy fruity qualities to this beer as well. It's almost a little bit phenolic in that way too, but overall a very nice example of the Doppelbock style. The flavours, it has all the types of flavours that you'd expect. The phenolic quality is probably about the sort of cakey and medicinal quality the beer has. That's probably about the only thing that you wouldn't normally expect in a Doppelbock actually. That's maybe more something you would associate with like a Belgian Bruin, or maybe even maybe not a quadruple, maybe more a Belgian Bruin, to be honest with you. But overall, it's a nice example of the style, and I wouldn't hesitate to drink it again. And this is a style that I'm hard to impress with because I like it that much with the German ones. But yeah, have a go at this beer for yourself and just see what you think. This is a really nice winter beer, a really nice sharing winter beer, this one, so pick it up and just have a go at it and see what you think. It's a little bit more pricey, but definitely worth trying if you get the chance. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. This one is the Midvinternatt, a Doppelbock at 7.4% from the Lockeby Bryggeri near Sundsvall on the high coast here in Sweden. Until the next time, Slanger just now, and I'll catch you guys soon. Make sure you check out my other beer reviews and stuff like this. Follow my social media and all of this kind of jazz. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Lockeby Bryggeri as well, and do give me some other brewery names and things like that that I can search for and see if I can get some other beers. I don't think I've reviewed all that many beers from around the Sundsvall area, so if you're watching from there, your advice would be greatly appreciated because I'd like to cover that area a little bit more. But yeah, thank you again for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon. The Midvinternatt from Lockeby Bryggeri, just outside of Sundsvall just outside of Härnösand, near Sundsvall on the high coast in Sweden. Slanger, skull, cheers, check out this beer.